friends, and welcome to this video. I'm Emily, and today we're going to be talking about some updates to my Make 9 2024 board. We're into June now, and I've been kind of really thinking and mulling over the projects and patterns that I had initially picked for my Make 9 board, which is part of a make-along that's hosted by Amy from Noble Character Crafts. It's the Make 9 2024 make-along. And some of the things I was like, okay, these are definitely still things that I want to make. And then some of the things, there were just some other patterns that I just couldn't get out of my head. And I've been thinking about making these patterns for like a while. So I thought, okay, let's go ahead and do a few swaps and change things up a little bit and swap out some patterns. And then also I have separated it off. So my original board, I had a couple of kids items on there for my children, my toddler and then my soon-to-be born baby. But then I decided, because I've been just on a kick of making all these baby and little kids things, I decided to separate it off and have a specific like 3x3 grid for just for kids stuff. And that kind of helped like separate the two in my head and kind of made it a little bit more cohesive to me, I guess. So today I just kind of wanted to talk through really quickly just the different swaps and changes that I've made, and I'm really happy about it. I feel pretty good about this. There's one pattern that I'm still going back and forth on, but it is a pattern that I've been thinking about making for years, and so I feel like I should at the very least try it and complete it. And then if I hate it, this is the beauty of knitting. If you absolutely do not like it, you can frog the whole thing and use the yarn for something else. And I think that that's what I need to do to get it out of my system. But let's kind of go into it. So I'm going to pop up somewhere up here my original board that you can see. I've got it on my phone here. And so you can see I had a blanket, I had some toys, I had the Clarendon sweater, I have the, oh gosh, I can't remember what the drop sweater is. Then I had a vintage like feather and fan sweater. I had the Felicity sweater by Yamagara, Tulsa Tea by Rebecca Clow of Crayabea, Ranunculus by Midori Hirose, and then I had this cowl pattern. I can't remember the designer, but I'll have it listed all down below. So now we'll swap it out, and here's my new board. And you'll see there's a few changes. So as you can see, there's 3 that have stayed exactly the same, which is the Drops sweater, which I think is the title. It's Tide something. Tulsa and Ranunculus. Those 3 have all stayed the same. And technically I've already made 1 Tulsa and 1 Ranunculus, but I'm planning to make more, so those are definitely getting checked off the list. But then you can see that I have swapped out the other 6 patterns on here. Now, one of them I wanted to mention, the cowl. So on my original board, that was kind of more of a placeholder pattern. I wasn't sure if I necessarily wanted to knit that specific pattern for a cowl, but I knew that I wanted to make a cowl this year. So I found a cowl that I really, really loved, and actually, spoiler alert, I just cast it off this morning, so it's about to get blocked, and I'm very excited about it, so I'll share it in the next podcast. But it's the Pretty Little Cowl by Colleen Kinnersley Designs, I think is what it is. And so that one, it's I wanted to make a cowl, but I found a different pattern that I wanted to use. And then the other one that I have kind of done that with is, in my original board, I had the Vintage Feather and Fan sweater, and I would still love to make that pattern very, very much so. I think it's a beautiful pattern, and I think it would be a really fun experience to make a vintage knitting pattern. However, the downside with vintage patterns is that they don't have quite the size range of modern day knitting patterns, and whatever size range they have, usually it doesn't go up very far in the bust sizes. So I think the biggest size of that one was like a 38-inch bust, and especially right now with pregnancy and everything, I'm at like 43, 44, 45, somewhere in that range. It fluctuates, which is quite a bit bigger. So my hope was, kind of thinking about it, I was like, oh, well, maybe, my gauge is probably going to be off, because apparently I'm a very loose knitter. So it'll probably end up bigger than what the original pattern is, but it would also be a little bit iffy on making it. So I have swapped that out for a pattern called I believe it's the Summer Vibes top. I can't remember the name of the designer. It's like Trina something, I think. I'll have it on the screen here. I saw this pattern on the Knitting McPurley podcast. Devin of Knitting McPurley, she is knitting it, and it's not a feather and fan stitch, but it's still kind of that wavy and garter, and I love it. I really, really love it. Like, I saw it and I was just like, this is exactly what I would want to knit for a top. Like, that's kind of that feather and fan stitch inspired, like, it gives the feather and fan vibe without being feather and fan stitch. So that is one that I've just swapped out the pattern, but I am planning to use the same yarn that I was planning to use for the feather and fan stitch vintage pattern. I'm planning to use the same yarn for this one. And then also I have the Mystery Mouse Yarn Co. Holly. We did a little trade thing last year, and I made some project bags, like little drawstring bags for her advent calendar, and in exchange for getting an advent calendar. So I have 12 mini skeins and a full-size skein, and my plan is if I'm gonna make one version of this Summer Vibes top, and if I love it as much as I hope I will, my plan is to use that beautiful advent yarn to make a second version of it. If I don't love it as much, because the yarn that I'm planning to use, I don't have it right here with me, but it's just some Hobby Lobby inexpensive, like, acrylic yarn, and if I don't love it as much as I hope I do, then I will save that advent yarn for something else. But I think that it would be so much fun to have some sort of a garment out of the advent yarn, so that's my hope. So those are the two that I just swapped out different patterns, but it's the same vein. And then the next one is I have been wanting to make I believe it's pronounced Biz beret by oh gosh, the name just escaped me. What is it? I can't remember. It'll come to me in a second, but I'll have it on the screen here regardless. I saw it on the Flossy Knits podcast ages ago, and I really love it. And then Dana from Tales from Cuckoo Land has knit 2 or 3 of these, and I think it's just such a very cute little beret pattern, and I would love to try it. So I wanted to put that on this board because this is kind of why I decided to update it, because there have been a few different patterns that I can't get out of my head, sort of a thing, and I keep thinking about them. And so I was like, you know what, instead of trying to find like new or different patterns, let's put the ones that I've been thinking about constantly or regularly, let's put them on the board, because those are obviously ones that are, like I said, stuck in my head. And so I'd like to go ahead and at the very least try and knit them and see if I like them. And my plan is for the Biz Beret, that's what I'm going to use for the Shark Week challenge, which is coming up in July. It's a knitting challenge that's hosted by Deplorable Knitter and Ann Pinkova, who host the Politically Incorrect Knitting podcast. I dip in and out of watching their podcast. A lot of times, if I do watch it, I'll watch like the Knitting Wars, because I'm not a very political person, and sometimes like the whole politics aspect of it is a little stressful for me. So like I said, I dip in and out of it. But I think I really wanted to participate in their Shark Week challenge last year, and I didn't find out about it until it was way too late in the game. It was much too close to it, and I had a lot going on at the time. So this summer, I'm hoping I can participate, and I'm thinking I'm going to try and do the Biz Beret for the challenge, which means I might try and go ahead and cast one on now in some yarn that I have now to see how complicated of a pattern it is, and if it's something that I could reasonably do in a week, because I like the aspect of challenging myself to do something in a short period of time, but I also don't want to stress out over it too much. So anyway, that's a slight tangent. But yeah, so the Biz Beret. And then the next one is on there, you can see it just has text that says Red Wall Sweater. I have had some Red Wall mini skeins from Mystery Mouse Yarn Co. for 2 years now. I'm trying to remember now if I got it when I was pregnant or if it was pre-pregnancy completely. I can't remember for sure, but I've had it for a very long time and I absolutely love those mini skeins. And Holly is potentially going to be releasing another collection of Redwall inspired yarns sometime here in the summer, possibly, I hope. And ever since I got those mini skeins, I wanted to incorporate them into some sort of a garment, like some sort of a sweater, top, something. And I just haven't been able to figure it out what I want to do with it. But ever since I got them, that's what I've wanted to do with them. And so, like I said, I've had them for a couple of years now, and I just haven't made anything with them. So this is a little bit of a wild card where this is a yarn that I want to use up, not necessarily a specific pattern that I want to knit, but I'm really excited about it. I'm waiting to see if Holly releases the Redwall collection, if there's something in that collection that will go with my mini skeins, because otherwise I may try and dye up some sort of like solid colored yarn to then do some sort of like a yoke something, striped yoke or something with the mini skein set. But yeah, so that one I haven't picked a pattern out for it yet, but I want to use that yarn so badly. And then the last two, we've got the Crochet by Knitting McPurley. If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know I knit one last year. Ever since I cast that one off, I have been dying to start another one, to make another one, at least one more. And so, again, it's been over a year now since I've knit that pattern, and I keep thinking about it. It's not something where it's like I think about it for a week and then I'm like, oh, whatever. And it just is obliviated by the new and fresh and whatnot. I keep thinking about it. And so I was like, that really needs to go on my make 9 board, because that's something that it's easy to do, because it only takes, for the size that I knit, it takes one skein of 3 different colors. So it's fantastic for using up like leftovers and stuff. And again, spoiler alert, I already cast this on using some stash yarns. And so it's really great because, as I've said before, I am really trying to use up my stash this year, and so I have several different like individual skeins of colorways that have been sitting in my stash for a while, and this is a fantastic pattern to use them up. So I put that one on there because I was like, okay. I was going back and forth about keeping the Felicity sweater pattern by Yamagara. I love the look of that pattern, and I have the yarn for it. I bought the yarn specifically for that pattern last year, and I would still like to make it. But so I was going back and forth with whether or not to put the Faucette in place of the Felicity. And I decided to just go ahead and do the Faucette because then I can use some older yarns. And then hopefully if I have time, I would still love to knit the Felicity sweater pattern this year. But Faucette has just been stuck in my head. And then the last pattern that I have swapped out is the Tanya by Caitlin Hunter. It's Hunter of Borland Knitworks. Okay, this pattern, I have wanted to knit it ever since I saw Katie from Inside Number 23. She used to have a podcast that I absolutely loved, but then she had kids and life happened, and she hasn't really podcasted it since then. Which is kind of sad. I wish she would come back to it, but I totally understand that, like 100%. But when she was pregnant with her first daughter, she knit a version of the Tanya sweater, and that was like the first version of it that made me really, really want to knit it. And it's just this beautiful fingering weight sweater. Part of my hesitation with it is it's knit bottom up, and I just don't care for the bottom up construction. It just is not as intuitive fitting wise as top down, at least for me. But I saw it and I was just like, oh, it's beautiful. I actually had cast it on and was knitting one when I was pregnant with my little boy a couple years ago, and I was kind of stressed about it because the yarn that I was using, I didn't necessarily think I was going to have quite enough to finish the pattern, and so it was not a very enjoyable knit. So I got through the lace portion and then into the stockinette, and then I contacted a couple of people on Ravelry who had some of that yarn, and I was going to see if I could get some more, and then it wasn't like the right timing, it wasn't the right fit, like whatever you want to call it. Like it wasn't right. So I ended up frogging that one. But again, I have not been able to get this pattern out of my head for like multiple years at this point. And then to make it even worse, Holly from Mystery Mouse Yarn Co, she has 2 beautiful versions of the tenue sweater, and I need to try it. I need to try and knit it and see if I like it. And like I said, if I hate it, I'll just frog it. It's fine. But I keep thinking about it. I keep thinking about it and I can't get it out of my head. So that's why I popped that one on there, because I was just like, okay, this is one that I bought the pattern years ago, so I've had the pattern for ages, and I just need to knit it and see if it's something that I would like, if it's a garment that I would wear. Like, it just needs to happen. So those are the updates to my main Make 9 board, and then I have the kids version of my Make 9 board. And on here you'll see I kept the same 2, there's a crochet blanket that I wanted to, well, I'll show you I didn't originally have a kids board, so I can't show you my original kids board, but on my original Make 9 board, which I'll pop back up here, you'll see there's a crochet blanket and there's the little like knitted animal toys. I have kept those 2, so here's my kids board. But I have switched which pattern I'm using for the crochet blanket. It's just I'm using the Neat Ripple, I think that's what it's called, blanket pattern by Attic 24. It just was a little bit more intuitive and easier, and had more of the look that I was going for the crocheted blanket than the original pattern that I picked. And again, that original pattern was literally just a placeholder because I was expecting to swap it out when it came time to actually start that blanket, which I have started it. I haven't worked on it in a while. I should, because we are getting close to due date time. Still got a couple months, but it goes faster than you think. So I have kept that one, and I have kept the little like animal toys because I would love to knit those. They're adorable. Like, they have little like sweaters and they're just, they're so cute. But anyway, so I have kept those 2 on there. And then, hold on, oh, there we go. I have the Newborn Vertebrae cardigan, which is just a very, very simple cardigan by Kelly Van Nykirk, I think is what it is. I've already knit that one, but I would potentially like to make another one. I'm not 100% sure yet. And then I have Micah's Raglan. I'm doing the Micah's Raglan T version, which is a pattern that's not out just yet. It will be. Lost my train of thought. One of my brother-in-laws called me for something. So Micah's Raglan. So I was originally hoping to make, or was originally planning to make the Micah's Raglan sweater, but then by Hannah of Hannah G Knits, but then she has come out with its like Micah's Raglan T. It's basically a fingering weight version of the Micah's Raglan sweater, and so I am doing a baby version and a toddler version, as you can see on my board, of that pattern. I've actually already finished the baby version, and then I am going to cast on the toddler version once I pick out the yarn for it. Then you'll see right below that on my board there's another baby and toddler. This is the Tweety Junior pattern, which is a design by Beta Jezik. I think that's what it is. It's the owner of Hedgehog, not Hedgehog, is it Hedgehog? Oh gosh, my brain. It's the owner of a very famous fiber company, of a yarn company. I feel like it's Hedgehog, but I could be wrong and completely... It's a free pattern. It's a very simple raglan top-down kids sweater. It's really nice. I've already made the toddler version. It was supposed to be the baby version. But my gauge was somehow way off that I'm like knitting on it, and I was just like, this is not baby size. So I tried it on my toddler and I was like, oh, this is a toddler size. So I just knit it longer and knit the sleeves longer, and it's fine. And I have just cast on the baby version. But for those ones, they're going to be matching like striped ones. They're super cute. I'm really happy about those. And then the last two patterns that I have put on this kids board is the Ollie's Everyday Slipover, which again, I've already made one. But I would like to make potentially another one. I've made a toddler size one. I'd potentially like to make another one for my toddler and then maybe one for the baby. I'm not sure yet. But that one's a really fun, simple like v-neck slip-over vest type of a pattern. I think it's very, very practical. And that's another design by Hannah G Knits. And then the last pattern on here is, I can't wait to get started. It's a little sea turtle. It's a free crocheted pattern called, I think it's Fred the Sea Turtle is what it is. I have been wanting to make my toddler a turtle of some kind almost since he was born. He was very little and he loved being in the baby wrap. Like I baby wore him constantly, like nonstop. It was one of his favorite things. And it was really cute because he was so little and his head was like popping out, and we just called him our turtle child because it looked like he was like a little turtle. And so I've been wanting to make him a turtle like ever since then. But I just haven't gotten around to it. I have been watching Audrey from Audrey's Crafting Corner. I hate how it's like you get ready to say something and your brain is just like, are you sure that's the way it is? But she has been really delving into crocheting and stuff. I found when I originally started watching her, she was doing like knitting podcasts, but then she's kind of pivoted and gone back to her first love, which is crocheting. And she has made several of these turtle patterns, and I think they are so cute. And then I have, I think the pattern calls for like the Brene blanket yarn, and I have some that I've had in my stash for like a couple years now. It was just one ball of green that I was planning to add onto a crocheted blanket that I had made, but I just haven't gotten around to it. And so I had the realization, I was like, oh, I already have half of what I need to make this turtle. I just need to get one other color for either the shell or the body, one or the other. And I can make this turtle, and it's a really big yarn, big hook, like it should be relatively quick. Now, knowing me as a busy mom and somebody who's not like super into crocheting and stuff, it's probably going to take me a while, but I would really like to make that for my toddler's birthday, just because even if he doesn't play with it, even if he doesn't care about it, just because, again, I have been wanting to make him a turtle for like 2 years. Well, not quite 2 years because he's not 2 yet, but almost that. And I have half of the yarn in my stash, and I was able to get the other color that I needed when Joann was having their Memorial Day sales. They had the yarn on sale, and it's supposed to be coming to my house at some point, hopefully. But that is that. And then I did have my sock board, which I'll pop up here. I'm probably gonna swap out some of those, but I feel like that's kind of a lesser important one because I'm mostly just knitting vanilla socks this year. Honestly, that's kind of the brain space that I have. So I don't really have any updates to that. I may do a little update later in the year, we'll see, but that is all of my updates from my Make 9, and I'm really excited about it. I feel much more confident that this is like what I want to do. Because I've put things in that they're projects that I've wanted to do for quite some time, and I just didn't put them on my original Make 9 board because there's so many knitting patterns that I would love to do. There's so many, and I just get so distracted sometimes. But I feel like I feel like this board is a better representation of the things that, like, the reoccurring things that I want to knit. And so I'm trying to pay attention to that a little bit more. And even if that means reknitting the same pattern like 16 times, it might be a little bit boring for you, but if I'm having fun, that's really what counts, because that's what knitting is about, is like joy and love of creating things. But yeah, so I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching all the way through to the end. I would love to know if you have any updates or swaps or thoughts on any of the patterns that I have talked about, or if you've updated your Make 9 plans. But yeah, I hope you're all doing well and having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!